Hi everyone, and welcome to this wrist-specific video. I'm going to go over some strengthening and stretching drills for your wrists to help them stay happy and healthy as you move through a yoga class, as you practice handstands, as you do whatever it is you do that puts weight into the wrists. It can be helpful for this if you have small aerobics weights. I have little 3-pounders here. Or alternatively, if you have a thinner water bottle. And the water bottle can be empty, full, really any weight that feels okay to you. I'm going to demo with an empty one, but you might be able to get a feel for, maybe start with an empty one and then you'll get a feel for what weight would work best for you. All right, so first of all, some warm-ups. As you get ready to start into a practice, there are some things you can do to kind of engage the wrists. First of all, you can start in tabletop, and from here just do some circles. Now as you're doing these circles, it's important that you go slow and not just kind of work yourself into it, because it's from there that you'll be able to find your limits of where feels good and where feels like it's too far. We never want to get to that line of too far. As you circle, your weight should transfer into your fingertips and you can really grip with your hands. It'll create a little pocket of air underneath your palm, and that shows you that you're really engaging. It would be the same as if we, tried to stand on our feet but we didn't grip with our toes, then we're putting a lot of extra force into the ankle. Similarly, we don't want to put too much extra force into the wrists. So you can do some circles with the shoulders over the wrists, and then go the other direction for however long feels good in your body. Additionally, you can angle the fingertips out to the sides, wrists toward each other, and go side to side, and this one's even more sensitive. So really grip into the fingertips, really go slow and careful as you move side to side, and feel through the wrists as you do so. One helpful cue here is to think of pressing the mat away a bit, so you're engaging through the shoulders and you're not just slacking into the wrists. That'll help you put more weight into the fingertips. Now from here, we can continue circling our fingers and go all the way back. Maybe just one hand at a time. Think of middle finger pointing straight back. Maybe doing both at a time feels okay. And the further back you put your hips, the bigger the stretch will be. And just do some rocks. Again, we like to have movement instead of just holding, because it allows you to work through various ranges of all of the muscles, tendons, ligaments involved. Now, from those stretches, those things that kind of begin to warm up the wrists, you can always take it further by lifting the knees and going through that again, potentially from plank, finding some circles, both directions, maybe turning hands out to the side and rocking, and so on. So if you felt like you didn't feel it enough from tabletop, you can do it in plank, or you can do it all in tabletop and then all in plank to continue to progress through it. From there though, your wrists will probably feel fairly engaged, fairly woken up. And so we have a couple different things we can do. I'm going to demo, like I said, with weights. You can do this without weights or with a water bottle, whatever suits you. But what we'll start with is elbows at 90 degrees, and I'll actually turn this way for this. And just think of lifting the thumb up and down. And it can be helpful to actually have the thumb lifted, so we think of thumb up, thumb forward, up, forward, up, forward. And so you can do this about 10 times per side. I like to do 10 times per side and go through it 3 different times. Or you can do it for a set time. Maybe you set a timer for 20 seconds. This video is not meant to necessarily be a full real-time practice of these things so much as instruction on how to do them. And so just know for yourself, okay, this is one of the movements, and you can of course do it longer or shorter than this video demos. All right, now the next one is going to be keeping the elbows bent, but we're turning a doorknob now. So we can turn in and then out, in and out. And notice as we do any of these movements, the slower you go, the more control you have to have. And in that slowness comes maybe a little more intention, a little more awareness. Just like doing bicep curls or pull-ups, the slower we go, the harder it becomes because we have every single one of those tiny little engagements that's part of the movement kicking in bit by bit by bit, and we're not able to use momentum to push through any of those engagements. So slow is good. Again, maybe a certain amount of time, maybe a certain number of reps. And then from here, we'll bring the fists facing down. So we have fingers pointing down, top of the hand facing up, and we're just gonna go down and up, down and up. All right, so similar to the motion you'd make if engaging the throttle on a motorcycle. And again, slower means more intentional. And you might notice little movements throughout your wrist as you're doing this. So play with alignment. Sometimes I have to think, oh, I need to angle my fist more one direction or the other because I naturally just angle out to the side and I'm not actually in alignment. And as soon as I find that, pointing straight ahead zone, all of a sudden it feels better in my wrists. Again, maybe for time, maybe for reps. And then the last one we'll do with our weights is to flip the wrists over, okay? So palms are facing up. And what we're gonna do is slowly roll the weight all the way down and then slowly curl it back up into a fist. Roll the weight down, curl it back up into a fist. So if you're using a water bottle, that's why I say a smaller diameter is nicer, because you can roll down more and then roll it back up and kind of allow the wrist to curl up a little bit at the top there. Okay, now with an empty water bottle, I'm not feeling this so much. It might be better with something in it. But again, maybe as you're doing that, you're like, yeah, this is working for me. So the cool thing about all of these different drills is that they are strength-based, but they all also promote and require mobility. So the wrist is a fairly mobile part of the body, and we need both strength and mobility to be able to move very efficiently on the wrists. All right, so when you finish with these, again, either for time or reps, you can set them aside. Again, traditionally, I would suggest that you do 3 sets of that, just moving through them a few different times. The nice thing is that you can do this anywhere, okay? I keep these little weights actually by my bed, and at night I sit in my bed and read, or I watch a show, and I just do this while I'm going through, okay? And so the first time you might have to remind yourself what all those little pieces of work were. But after that, your body memorizes it, and pretty soon you're doing it. And for me anyway, as I'm going through, I'm like, oh gosh, I just did like 5 sets of those instead of my intended 3 because my mind was distracted and it was feeling good in my wrists. And you'll probably feel it up your forearms as well. So doing a few sets of those, great thing. And you don't actually need to do the warm-up before. That warm-up's actually really nice at the start of any yoga class to just do and then move into the class, because then doing down dog and stuff like that will feel better. Okay, so that warm-up doesn't necessarily need to precede the strengthening work. Now, a couple other things. These little movements can be helpful after being on the wrist. So for example, maybe you moved through a yoga class, maybe you practiced a handstand, and now you want to kind of stretch your wrists out. There are a few different methods. So first of all, we can do blinkers with our hands. So palms facing each other, we're gonna bend at the lowest knuckle and bring fingers straight down and up, down and up, down and up. And again, you can go slow or fast here. Go for reps, go for time. And from here, we're gonna go into finger flicks. So what that looks like is we bring the fingertips all together and then we just flick out and in, out and in, out and in, okay? And it kind of helps to get a little bit of force behind these flicks. So these ones I do suggest you go a little faster on for that reason. All right, now the next one, I want you to act like you're holding a softball in either of your hands, and then with some muscle energy in the fingers, just start to do some circles of the wrists. Right? These are so nice to do in the middle of a class. If you want to set back on your heels in the middle of a down dog after practicing an arm balance, whatever it might be, and just make sure you go both directions. And then the final one we will do is, again, another one that's great after you've already been on the wrists, just like all of these have been. Interlace the fingers, but kind of keep them loose so you can keep the bottoms of the hands apart. And then just begin to circle a little bit. One wrist forward and then the other, one wrist and then the other, and then try to go the other direction, leading with the opposite wrist first. And that one, again, is just a great one to move through, get kind of any stuck feeling in the wrists out. Okay, and of course, just shaking the hands can also be a great organic bit of movement. So you've done some warming up, you've done some strengthening, you've done some stretching. So I want to close this video by showing you just a couple strategies to keep in mind in the midst of a yoga class when maybe you can't just stop and do some strengthening, you don't have your weights right next to you, or so on. If in the middle of a class you're feeling like it's too much on your wrists, you can always move to tented fingers. So going into tented fingers, for example, in downward facing dog. And to get there, you can just go to one and then the other, and then try it out from here, okay? Another option is to use your fists. So for example, let's say in tabletop position, your wrists are feeling kind of tired and sore, come to fists, and that takes out the bend in the wrist, and it makes it a lot just easier to put weight into the hands in this shape. So those are my couple of suggestions. The final thing to be aware of is that soft surfaces, although it seems like that might be nicer, are actually way harder on the joints. It's much harder for the joints to stabilize, and it's a lot easier for them to kind of collapse. For example, imagine if you were putting weight, for example, like moving into the splits on a bed, you might overextend your legs really easily because it's a soft surface. Whereas on the floor, you're pushing into it and it's not moving. And so you can be in control of how deep you go. So similar to that, practicing things on your hands on a harder surface will actually be easier on the wrists. That might mean, for example, I have this big thick mat here. It's pretty hard though, but if you have a thick mat that's soft, it might mean actually putting something hard under it. Or alternately, maybe you practice on a hardwood floor as opposed to on a cushy surface. If you're practicing on a carpeted floor, for example, that can be mat plus carpet can really be just hard on the wrists. So maybe practicing on a harder surface, or even investing in a piece of plywood to go under your mat, or a small hand balancing surface if you're practicing inversions a lot. They do, certain companies make those. So overall, I hope that this video helps. Keep in mind that you can do however many reps, however many sets as feels good in your body. And this really is more of a daily practice. So for example, these weights, I do this every single night before bed. And so I would suggest that you really do choose parts of this that you are going to practice on a daily basis, because that's what it takes to build up that strength and stamina to allow for happy and healthy wrists in a yoga practice. As always, if you have any questions, please don't hesitate to reach out. I am here to be of service to you. Bye.